Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic 2, Sonic CD, Sonic 3, Sonic & Knuckles. I have spent over the last year and a half defending what I would consider to be one of the greatest starts to one of the most successful video game franchises of all time. The animation, the music, the fast-paced gameplay. Say what you want about New Age Sonic, but Sega truly succeeded at creating this badass rival to the bright red plumber that dominated the video game industry in the late 90s. Now, I pride myself on my originality. I really try to dig in and find all of these nuances that people typically don't look for in Sonic games, and I feel confident that I've come up with a lot of creative criticisms over the year. So confident, in fact, that I am going to do a first. I am going to say a phrase that nobody has ever uttered in the history of the Sonic franchise. Sonic had a rough transition to 3D. Sonic had a rough transition to 3D is probably one of the most uttered phrases in the whole of video game history. Bad voice acting, poor controls, glitches on glitches on glitches, Big the Cat, and especially this scene right here.
Watch out! You're gonna crash! Ah!
And from the surface level, I get that a lot of this game looks really bad, and I'm not gonna defend the parts of this game that are really bad, but I feel like time has done a terrible disservice to Sonic Adventure. There's so many intuitive and groundbreaking ideas that were honestly really well thought out and truly ahead of its time. And yes, I'm still talking about the game that gave us this scene right here.
Oh, wow! It's changed shape! Did you see that?
But this game is known for its bad transition to 3D, despite critics at the time giving it numerous praise for all the technical advancements it brought to the video game industry. We might laugh at this game now, but at one point in time, journalists were calling this one of the greatest games to ever exist. 23 years later though, and this is considered a tumor to the video game industry, the start of the downfall to one of the greatest video game icons to ever exist. I guess they had to make room for Chameleon Twist 2. This is Sonic Adventure, released on December 23rd, 1998 in Japan and September 9th, 1999 in North America. The launch title for the Dreamcast, the last console Sega would ever release. And for good reason. Last time we left Sonic, he was dominating the video game industry. Sonic 3 and Knuckles was an excellent entry into the video game scene and one of the most fulfilling experiences I have played in a very long time. But people were getting tired of the blue blur, and sales figures were starting to show that, as Sonic 3 and Knuckles didn't sell anywhere near what Sega expected to. Sega touted itself on its ability to be bigger and better than the competition. So when its next console, the Sega Saturn, came out, they had to go all in and create an industry first, the ultimate 3D platformer codenamed Sonic Extreme. It was canceled. Sonic Extreme actually does have a good bit of information on it. E3 1996 had a playable demo of what was slated to be the first big 3D outing in the Sonic franchise. This was a neat foundation for what the fast blue blur could have looked like in 3D, and despite it being only a demo, it still functions better than a lot of the newer games in the series. Sega wanted to keep up this cool, radical version of Sonic, the extreme style of Sonic, so they'd have surfing and bungee jumping. It was 1996 for Christ's sake. Gameplay-wise, it would look similar to Bug, another title that was released on the Sega Saturn, and that is probably the most ridiculous sentence I'm going to say all day. It's no surprise, but Sega, the company known for rushed development cycles, ultimately canceled the project. The staff was constantly intimidated, company morale was at an all-time low, but 1996 wouldn't be over for the Blue Hedgehog, because in early November, we would eventually get Sonic's first transition into 3D. You know, I've seen car crashes that look better than this. To be fair, I loved Sonic 3D Blast as a kid. Popping in Sonic Mega Collection, seeing all these classic Sonic games I wasn't good at, but this was one that I could actually beat. But looking back at it now, come on, that's a shit stain. Oh, that's Knuckles! 2 years into a brand new console's lifespan, your first 3D outing, and it just looks like ass! The models don't look good, the levels are clunky to go through, and to make it worse, you released it on your last generation console too, like why? You currently have a console that's a commercial failure, the first 3D Sonic game on the market, and you decide to do a dual release nearly 2 years into the console's life cycle? To Sega's credit, this wasn't true 3D. Similar to Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo, Sonic Team would create 3D models and then recreate those 3D models into 2D sprites. And this is not inherently bad. I've seen plenty of games that went on to do the exact same thing and have decent success. I just hate this one. I thought that was a kidney bean with eyes. So for its first true 3D outing, we have to go 1 year forward to Sonic Jam, a game compilation of the 4 Genesis classics and Sonic World. And it doesn't look that bad. The textures look nice. You could take Sonic out of the background and clearly tell this is Sonic inspired. This is a pretty nice transition. Like, look at that idle animation. That is what I expect a 3D Sonic to look like. But this came out at the same time as Crash Bandicoot and Super Mario 64, and this was just a tech demo of what Sonic could do in 3D. With no true game to call its own, the Sega Saturn was a commercial failure, and it goes to show. Like, ask anybody today. They can't tell you what a Sega Saturn is. Hey everybody, I am here at the Oklahoma City Convention Center at SaturnCon 2022, hoping to get a chance to meet fans young and old that have been influenced by the famous system. Which brings us to the Dreamcast, the last-ditch effort for Sega to get a leg up in the gaming industry. Sega was already very far behind in the console wars. We had already seen Crash Bandicoot, Super Mario 64, Banjo and Kazooie, Metal Gear Solid, Ocarina of Time, Symphony of the Night. Sega had to make sure Sonic had a big impact, or else we could lose the blue hedgehog to the sands of time. Could you imagine if that happened? So with 2 small steps behind us into a new dimension, let's take a look at Sonic's first transition to 3D. You know, I just had to change my pants, once for shitting in them and once for This is exactly how you show off your brand new console in 1999. Ocarina of Time was the go-to game on the 64, but was only capable of running 20 frames per second. Final Fantasy VIII was a massive leap forward in gaming graphics, but looked like it ran at about -2. So seeing this fantastic cutscene, seeing the water physics, if you're 10 years old in 1999, be honest, which game are you really picking out? You know, I've always been a Mahjong kind of guy. You see, 1999 was the era of platformers, and by extension, the era of innovation in 3D. The Super Mario 64 laid the groundwork of how 3D platformers should be designed, and every other game would bounce off of this and add brand new ideas to the newly established formula. Banjo-Kazooie would popularize the double jump, making motion in 3D far more accurate and forgiving. Crash Bandicoot was created with the concept of emotion in mind, so you could accurately see the personality Crash exhibited in a 3D model. Not to mention he already had 3 games out at this point. Spyro was the hot new dragon in town. Tomb Raider gave us Rule 34 in 240p. Gex existed. Donkey Kong 64 had a rap song. And if that wasn't enough, there were dozens more platformers available on store shelves at this time. So how could Sonic Team one-up everybody and do it better? Sex appeal. This is not exactly true, but that's not to say it wasn't somewhat of a selling point for the original Sonic adventure. All of these games, while offering fantastic experiences, didn't offer multiple playable characters, or at least characters that had discernible differences. Chameleon Twist 2 lets you pick from 4 different characters. Cool. All of this is evident by taking one look at the back of the box. All 6 of your playable characters living in the flesh. I've always loved reading the back of the box, like the rad cool personality that Sega was trying to give off at the time. Buckle up and we're talking 5-point harness. What 10-year-old is gonna understand that? You want rings? We've got rings. Yeah, so does a Sonic drive-thru. You want insane graphics, huge levels, puzzles, hidden mini-games, multiple playable characters, and more? Just play Final Fantasy VII. It has all of those things that I just mentioned and Tifa. What more could you want? This game doesn't have a Chow Garden. The Sonic Adventure really did tout itself as being the coolest of the bunch in the late 90s, and putting it up against the competition, I think the new Sonic design really does stand out against the rival mascots. Our 4 Genesis characters are back: Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy, and I genuinely like all of their designs. I think they all translate over really well since they all have these discernible features that are easily recognizable. Sonic maintains his fast personality, Tails is the high-flying sidekick, Knuckles can scale walls and punches to attack, and kind of a new addition. It only makes sense though because his name is literally Knuckles, similar to how Tails can attack with his tails. And Amy is back, once again fulfilling her role as damsel in distress. But don't worry, I actually have some positive things to say about you annoying charming little princess. But 2 new characters are introduced, E102 Gamma and Big. I bet you're curious what I'm gonna say about the cat. Every good video game has a fishing minigame. I said that last week too. All I'm gonna say is if you haven't played Big's story with the Sega fishing rod, you haven't truly lived. While the 3 Genesis characters resemble their 2D counterparts with a 3D twist, the 3 newcomers make for around 6 characters, 3 2D veterans and 3 newcomers. This was made so that there'd be a refreshing change of pace in comparison to the fast-paced gameplay of Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails, which we'll touch on a bit later. Trust me, I know what you're thinking. You all want to hear what I have to say about the fat f. But 6 playable characters do need a home, and Sonic Adventure surprisingly comes with a fleshed out story. Not just one single campaign like Super Mario Bros. 2 playable with multiple characters, no! Each character has their own unique fundamental adventure, look at the game title, to enrich the entire experience. The story starts with Sonic and is honestly pretty basic. Dr. Robotnik, who is now referred to as Eggman, who is now an anime protagonist, finds an ancient being named Chaos, who grows stronger when he's fed the Chaos Emerald. So Sonic has to find the Chaos Emeralds, fight the stupid fucking boss a million times in order to stop Eggman and Chaos from destroying the world.
All's well that ends well, right?
All's well that ends well, right? It is a basic story, but this is an ingenious idea, and I wish more games would take this individual story approach. As Sonic progresses through the game, more and more of these characters are introduced, and once they are, their story becomes available with the option to play their campaign in its entirety. Are you halfway through the game at Speed Highway and getting burnt out on Sonic gameplay? No problem, just switch over to Big, drown yourself in a lake, stay a while. But the best part, which I can't believe I haven't mentioned, is the full adventure map. Not just a series of segmented levels, but a fully interactable hub world, one that changes as you progress through the story. And sure, you might not be able to hold a rabbit, but here you can hold a 35-year-old man and an egg and talk to God. You can see other characters from a separate story interacting with the characters in your story. Not only does this add a perspective of where to go, but also adds this depth and meaning to why events are happening inside of the world. Sonic and Tails get separated so they can't rendezvous with each other due to the strike that's happening at Station Square. And these events like the Station Square strike make Sonic Adventure feel like a fleshed out game world, a world that has a sense of purpose and a reason for anthropomorphic animals and a water demon and a 6-foot tall cat that can ride on a car. I was always fascinated by these little micro stories that take place through the entire game. One of my favorites is this story of a girl who has a crush on this restaurant employee but is too nervous to go talk to him. But as the game progresses, she eventually works up the courage to go inside and eventually, by the end of the game, starts working alongside him in the shop. Sonic Adventure is full of little design details like this. I like how if you don't remember where you are, starting the game back up gives you this little description of where you left off in the story. This is a 10-hour romp. With games getting bigger and bigger, this is really intuitive. The last time I played Ocarina of Time was 6 months ago. I can't remember where I am now. They truly wanted to make this feel like they took the loose story elements of the 2D games that were restricted as a product of their time and fleshed them out into a 3D space. However, it's not perfect though, as one look at any cutscene can tell you everything you need to know about everyone's biggest problem with this game.
Well, that wasn't so hard.
Can you believe I'm about to defend this? Not even gonna sugarcoat it, the animations in Sonic Adventure look absolutely awful. The mouth movements look like they dialed Crash's facial animations up to 11, and the way the characters move can be an absolute nightmare. But in its defense, all of these cutscenes are in the game engine, which means the same models being used to run through Emerald Coast are the same ones that are used in these cutscenes. When creating models for these characters, they didn't render individual movements to make the cutscenes look smoother on facial animations. Instead, they used expression sheets and flipped through the expressions that made the most sense for the scene at hand, and then carried on to the next one. The final product shows how thought out the idea was in the long run, and goes to show why characters like Knuckles don't look that bad, while characters like Sonic really do have a glaring problem with how they're animated. But all of these camera shots are done in engine as well, so these opening scenes where we see Sonic running across the rooftops and the camera panning over the police, it is an absolute marvel that they managed to make this happen in 1999. They were really trying to go for that cinematic, gnarly approach. I'm running out of synonyms for cool. I don't think refrigerator works very well. And the voice acting.
Sonic, is that you? You're looking kinda weird, good buddy.
doesn't really help this out either, okay? Just like everything else, it was a brand new concept, and while I do think some voice lines are good and the overall tone of most of the characters was fair, if you don't have proper voice direction, it just sounds like you're throwing the best of what you've got together and plastering it on a screen.
I was on a snooze cruise, I guess.
Good thing you're okay.
I think the game does its best. They capture the feeling of the characters, and you can understand how each different one feels when they're on screen. But this isn't some innovative cinematic experiment meant to push the limits of establishing cinema-style writing inside of a video game. It's Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic Adventure's animation and voice acting are pretty laughable by today's standards, but these concepts were brand new at the time in 1999. Technically 1998 when the game came out in Japan. And I'm not saying that we should praise Sonic Adventure for its animation and voice acting, oh god no. But when you take into consideration that all of this was on a file size that was half the size of Final Fantasy VII, plus has a higher resolution and more cutscenes in the game, I think that that's certainly pretty tubular, and I have really got to stop with these synonyms because I am not good at them. But with all of these cutscenes being in engine, none of that really matters if the game doesn't work well in engine. And going back to this game for the first time in a very long time, it's not as bad as I remember it. It's actually pretty good. As you've probably guessed, camera control is the most frustrating part of this game, as is with every 3D platformer at the time. Everybody knows cameras didn't exist until 1996. There's even an NPC that comments about how bad the camera is in the beginning of the game. Are you frustrated with camera controls? F it, we might be the development team, but we don't know what we're doing. It's not that bad. There are a lot of times where I truly can't progress because I'm stuck between a rock and this stupid piece of camera angle. But it's okay. It's functional in most sections. I found it odd that the aiming reticle for fishing is actually very accurate and feels good to aim. Now, once it's actually in the water, you know, this is kind of how it feels like. Sonic is the main attraction here, game title, and I feel like the simplicity of his speed-based controls from 2D transferred over really well to a 3D space. Sonic built up a good bit of momentum as he runs forward, and physics are still at the forefront as going up and down hills affects the speed of movement just like in the original games. But different from the Genesis games is the new homing attack, an extra action in midair that allows Sonic to lock onto enemies and knock them out. Now, like I said before, Banjo and Kazooie had a double jump which allowed better precision in air. We're in a 3D space now, so depth perception can really be a bitch, so adding a mechanic that lets you catch your balance in midair was extremely necessary at the time. Now, why do I think that Sonic Adventure has the best double jump? Well, unlike the other mascots, this one could be used for homicide. I like how it doesn't slow down the pace of the game either. You perform the homing attack and you preserve your momentum so that you can, you know, just move on to the next one. You know, when you say it that way, it kind of makes it sound like a serial killer. It also homes into enemies fairly well. Even if an enemy isn't directly in front of you, the game will lock on if it's in the general vicinity, which, by the way, really helps solve a lot of the issues with the camera controls. But it does come with a downside. If you think of the homing attack as a means of progression, it doesn't really translate well without the enemy's presence. It's not that much of a boost forward, and it's really only used in small platforming sections that don't take up too much of the game, which is why we're blessed with the Spin Dash, easily the most intuitive and best feeling tool in Sonic's arsenal. That's it, that's Sonic's entire arsenal. The entire game is built around this spin dash. It's so easy to execute, it effortlessly brings you to top speed without becoming too much of a hassle to control, and it opens up a world of possibilities within its exploration. I spin dashed on top of this cliff face and ended up in a castle, and the developers knew this, which is why the level design translates over very well to a new 3D space. The best parts of 2D Sonic were the rewards you got from exploration. While you can tackle the game in its entirety by taking the intended path, veteran players are rewarded through skill when taking the less intended, more difficult to execute approach. And this is very evident in the core of Sonic Adventure's gameplay. One of the first instances you encounter is this small slope that leads up to this dock in Emerald Beach. The clear intention here is to take the intended path of springs to reach the end, but come on, I've got no patience for this. I've got Chow to take care of. If there's an area where you feel like there's a secret, there most likely is, and thanks to Galileo for inventing physics, you can traverse almost anywhere. All of these rooftops towering the backgrounds of Speed Highway, these segmented unexpected pillars that break up the monotony of Red Mountain. I especially loved these platforms in Lost Worlds where you can just attach yourself to the wall and fling yourself up to the top of the stage and bypass everything.
Don't you have the rest of the level to explore?
I'm busy. I especially love this small design detail of how stages are oftentimes broken up into multiple parts to break up the monotony of the level. And 2D platformers at the time, especially Sonic, had this tendency to have a level design in which you basically just hold right until the end of time slowly creeps in on your existence and then you'll occasionally press the A button to jump. But here, Sonic Team allowed the developers to truly express their creative ideas and make better, more engaging levels. Red Mountain, Windy Valley, Speed Highway with these 3 different sections where you're running across rooftops and scaling down a building and navigating the inner city. This is 3D Sonic at its peak. So far, we still have more than 10 games to go. However, not every creative endeavor works very well. I find Ice Cap is fairly monotonous due to the slow-paced nature of these hanging icicles. And as much as I enjoy the snowboarding session, I'm not a big fan of the physics being used here. I feel like Sonic is being glued to the ground most of the time. I've also never liked the casino levels in Sonic games, but I especially don't like how if you make one wrong move on the pinball machine, you have to go through this long 45-second, no exaggeration, transition where the only interesting thing I've noticed is a Knights reference. I mean, it looks pretty, but when this is the 3rd time that I've made this mistake on a pinball machine and I have to sit through this cutscene again and again and again, it kind of gets redundant at that point. I seriously wasn't kidding. This snake in Lost World is a bitch. I will not be elaborating any further. Red Mountain, though, is one of the best stages in the game. It's just really unfortunate that the ring dash here is an absolute pain. Sonic is all about going fast, so when I have to wait 2 seconds to charge up a light dash, it becomes more of a chore rather than a very creative gameplay mechanic. I will soon be elaborating further. As far as the hub world goes, I'm not too fond of this here either. You can very much tell that this is a last-minute addition. For anybody who disagrees, here's a pen, here's a paper, draw a map of the Mystic Ruins. If you can, I will gladly shut up. He's good. I love that there's this sense of exploration, but the hub world is... it's okay. The puzzles are basic, there's not many hidden secrets to find. You do have these emblems and secret Chow eggs that are a neat addition, but there is a lot of unused space. Like, they wanted to put all these extra assets in there, but ran out of time because... it's Sega. Surprisingly enough, Sonic Adventure was originally intended to be an RPG. This explains the hub world, different areas, the convoluted story, the time travel. Just taking a look at how big these areas are, it makes perfect sense to imagine small NPCs that have side quests or a ring system that wasn't just regulated to the black market. Sega sent entire teams to South America to truly capture the essence of this flashback section with beautiful scenery. But because of time restraints, this area shows no importance except for being used in these flashbacks. No levels, no missions, just a set piece. All of these time restraints and the RPG elements are most likely the reason they went with a 6 playable character roster, and that is what I call a segue. So might I introduce you to Miles Tails Prower, or as I like to call him, the speedrun character. Tails is essentially a side B to Sonic's story. I've always thought of Tails as a story as, alright, you finish Sonic's story and beaten the game, hypothetically, so now you get to beat it again, but now you can cheese the f out of it. It's nearly the same levels, it's nearly the same layouts, but now you have to race against Sonic and one Eggman, but since you do have Tails' assist's power of flight, you're essentially cheating. I always go back through these levels that I've already been through with Sonic and think, wow, this is what God must feel like. Is he f***ing the ground? Every level has an infinite number of shortcuts. Like, look at this here. A level only took me 30 seconds to complete, and no joke, it only took me about 10 minutes to achieve this time. But of course, this means replaying the same levels, fighting the same bosses, and doing the same puzzles, and it's like, okay, the Chaos and Tornado section aren't that bad when you play it once, but once you have to do them twice in a row, you start questioning your sanity and how bad it's gonna suck if you had to do this a 3rd time, son of a Knuckles! Unlike Sonic, he doesn't have linear levels. I'm sure we're all aware of the treasure hunting stages. I won't talk about the difference between these levels and the ones in Sonic Adventure 2 since that game wasn't even a thought at the time, but the overall idea is genius. Having this 3D scavenger hunt where you have to locate pieces of the Master Emeralds, it's not only an extension of his original story from Sonic 3, but guides the backstory for the entirety of Sonic Adventure, while also giving us a character who doesn't chuckle. Knuckles feels really nice to control. This is exactly how I'd feel the 2D Knuckles would come over. cameras! Trying to search for the emeralds really shows off how bad cameras at this time have aged. It doesn't detract from the gameplay too much, it just gets a bit frustrating at inconvenient times. Also, am I the only one who feels like most of the cutscenes with Steagall just feel off? I wish they could have spent a little bit more time building up Knuckles' tribes. Like, why are the echidnas essentially extinct? Why is Knuckles the last echidna to live? How far in the past are Steagall and the elders? How the f do Chow have anything to do with chaos besides, oh, I was protecting these innocent creatures for seemingly no reason? Okay, so hear me out. I have a love-hate relationship with Amy's story. On one hand, I think this whole story is absolutely useless, and Amy is used as a partial selling point for a female audience. Not a good one at that, if I might add. On the other hand, Amy Rose's story acts like a classic age horror game. Think about it, you start off in Twinkle Park in this wide open area that allows you to understand the controls. It immediately introduces a threat that's faster than you and invincible, and then closes in on you into this tight corridor to have you run for your life. Does it sound like any other game that came out in 1998? And I love this concept, but then you get scenes like this. You play a mini game and get a power-up, but this power-up is never used in the game. There's no reason for it. I actually forgot it existed. I had to Google it. And it is especially apparent when she has the least amount of levels of all characters, and you spend more time running from one area to another than actually playing the game. I also happen to notice that a lot of her story has scenes that are similar to another story, but they don't have voice lines. Like Tails dropping her back off after leaving the egg carrier. There is no dialogue, almost as if this was a last-minute addition and not well thought out so that they could focus on more important characters. Oh my god! I'm not gonna sit here and beat a dead horse. Nobody likes Big the Cat. Even the characters don't like Big the Cat. Most characters Big talks to don't even acknowledge his existence. The only memorable time anybody does is during a boss fight where you fish for Froggy. Like, as stupid of an idea as that is f***ing hilarious. It took me an entire minute to get this truck off of the sewer entrance. If you lose a lure fishing, for some reason Big dies. His voice acting.
Hey, wait a minute. You swallowed my lucky charm.
I can appreciate the change of pace. I can appreciate the effort and the creativity of putting a boss battle that involves fishing in the game. But this is fodder, plain and simple. If Sonic Adventure is Disney World, Big the Cat is the gas station truck stop where you feel like a 40-year-old man is gonna violate you. I still personally recommend it with the fishing lure. The story, not the violation. E102 Gamma, he is adorable. Look at his running animation. Whenever he goes fast, he squats down to increase speed. E102 is another creation of Dr. Eggman, a robotic sentient life form meant to collect the Chaos Emeralds, similar to Metal Sonic from Sonic CD. Imagine waking up for the first time and seeing your brother in a coma. Yet another creative idea, running around a stage trying to get to the end while shooting targets that fill your path, but the time adds a sense of haste, and so it's so satisfying to keep replaying a stage to save more and more time. It's genuinely well thought out. Everyone always refers to Gamma's story as being the best, and I have to agree. It essentially involves Gamma gaining sentience and feeling like he has to liberate his robot brethren. Of course, the only way to do that is fratricide. You know, it's kind of like homicide, but there technically is a word for it. I appreciate how Gamma's story is essentially just him walking into the wrong door at the wrong time. Eggman says to go complete this task, but he ends up going into the wrong door and getting a pep talk from Amy. Look at you, you're finally serving a purpose in this story. All right, I've got money on this fight, so all you've got to do is survive 10 seconds. All right, best 2 out of 3. Surely I'm not gonna lose a bet for a third. He ends up killing himself at the end of his story. And that is the story of Sonic Adventure. Or so you'd think. Yes, we have to talk about the question mark story, the Super Sonic story. It's literally just a boss battle. I wish there was more to this story. Chaos goes berserk and uses the Chaos Emeralds to become Perfect Chaos, a being meant to bring destruction and unintended chaos to the world. However, Chaos only used the negative power of the Chaos Emeralds because... And Sonic uses the positive power of the Emeralds to bring a stop to him once and for all. This is your first big outing. You could have taken all of these 6, scratch that 5, characters and had them travel around the world to get the Chaos Emeralds in one last climactic level. Instead, it's just a bunch of cutscenes. Chaos is defeated in a pretty lackluster boss fight, and Steagall comes down to, send everyone back to the past for some reason? I'm still trying to piece that one together. And that is Sonic's infamous rough transition to 3D. It is a lot of ground to cover. It has 6, 7, 6.5, 6.25 storylines that make up Sonic's first big outing into a brand new dimension. And going back and taking a look at this game, barring the voice acting and animation, its lows are honestly not that low, but its highs are extremely high for a game that came out as a launch title in 1998. The game quality is fairly inconsistent, but inconsistent in the fact that its highs are so extremely high that when you get to a part that's mildly frustrating, it really starts to show its age. And that age is very apparent as well. With a game that's now almost 25 years old, we've taken concepts like this and polished them to a T. Sonic Adventure is that cool uncle that you had as a kid that you thought was the most amazing guy on the planet. But now that you're older, you understand that he has his flaws, and sometimes he's just gonna say something racist and you gotta back up and say, whoa man, it's just a hedgehog. But with Sonic Adventure out of the way, I can finally talk about my favorite game in the entire Sonic franchise, Sonic Adventure 2. I forgot to talk about the Chow. This is the Chow Garden. I can't talk about Sonic Adventure without talking about the addiction that comes with babysitting. I'm an excellent parent. Just take a look at my resume. They are adorable. You've got this small little garden where you get to raise your own children and hope to God one of them doesn't drown. This is no doubt banking off of the success of Tamagotchis in the late 90s. These were small little handheld systems with digital pets that were all the rage in Japan. Think about it like Nintendogs, but your pet could die. For a side game mode, there is a surprising amount of depth here. Animals can change your Chow's appearance based off of their stats. They can bump uglies. They can draw their favorite characters in front of another character. Each one has their own stat values that you can level up and race against others. I've always wanted to start a Kentucky Derby like Chow Racing League. I'll do it one day. This is also Junesino's big music break for the Sonic series, and it just speaks for itself. He composed most of the Sonic soundtrack with his band Crush 40 and... come on, what else do I have to say? It's f***ing Crush 40. It's not his first role, as that was Sonic 3D Blast, but some of those compositions like Twinkle Park and Windy Valley are actually remixes of songs found in Sonic 3D Blast. And I could go on, but I have saved the very best thing for last. I have created a brand new segment that I like to call a 6-hour analysis on Sonic breaking into the mainstream media by taking a look at Sonic Adventure's anime that came out. It was okay. Standing up tonight, living in a froggy paradise. Standing up tonight, living in a froggy paradise.